Hey YouTube, so today I want to talk about EV news. Tesla added a new grade, standard range, to Model S and X. I'd like to explain about this new range, including its cost performance. Firstly, the new Model S and X began deliveries in North America from mid-2021. However, there were some production issues at first and deliveries didn't meet expectations. Eventually, the deliveries got on track. Finally, in late 2022 in Europe and early 2023 in China, the deliveries started. Deliveries began and went global. In Japan, Model S deliveries will start from August 2023, and Model X deliveries are expected to start around October 2023. So we'll finally have the fastest EVs on the market in Japan. Those waiting for their cars must be relieved. But actually, the demand for Model S and X in the US is showing signs of decline. Here's the sales ranking for battery EVs in the US for the first half of 2023. Model Y and Model 3 are leading in sales, pretty much as expected. When we exclude those models, we see that Model X sells about 13 to 14,000 units in 6 months. But what I want to focus on is the Model S. It sells about 10k units in first half, but Mercedes EQS is quickly catching up. Although the EQS includes SUVs, it's generally more expensive than Model S. Considering it's a luxury car, the growing sales of EQS might indicate that Model S sales aren't going as well. Model S sold about 14,000 units in the first half of 2022, which is a 30% drop from the previous year. The demand for Model S is really stagnating. Since Model S and X are important for Tesla's profitability, they need to revive sales. So, to revive Model S and X sales, Tesla has added a more affordable entry grade, the standard range. This Model S has a decent range of 515 km, and the Model X has 433 km. Considering the Model S AWD can go up to 652 km and Model X AWD 560 km, there's more than a 100 km decrease with the standard range. That's because it's a standard range model. And then the Model S goes from 0 to 60 in 3.7 seconds and Model X in 4.4 seconds. Although the acceleration performance is a bit lower than the AWD grades, the top speed is the same. The cargo space and vehicle size remain the same as well. For example, the Model S and AWD grade Model X have the same vehicle weight. Actually, the shorter distance of the standard range might make you think it has a different battery, but the same 100 kilowatt-hour battery is. So you might wonder why the range is shorter. It's because Tesla limits it through software, so they are really cutting back on the usable capacity. Doing a quick calculation on the difference, the usable battery capacity is probably around 75 kilowatt-hours. Even though a smaller battery capacity usually means a shorter charging time, this standard range has the same charging performance of 250 kilowatts. And since it's equipped with a 100 kilowatt-hour battery, it has plenty of buffer, so it can achieve faster charging easily. Despite having less battery capacity, it can use up to 250 kilowatt. That's a plus for this standard. Another great thing about the standard range is the ability to limit battery capacity via software. There are some benefits to this. An important point to note is that Tesla, though they officially deny it, will likely at some point provide an option to unlock this buffer. I'm not sure if it will cost $10,000, but probably something like that. So if you buy the car thinking you don't need so much range, but later you feel like you need more, you can upgrade to match the AWD grade's range. There might be a chance in the future to increase the range, which gives a sense of. Moreover, when there's a natural disaster, Tesla occasionally unlocks the distance capacity for existing owners. For example, when there are hurricanes in the US with the standard range, you might only get 75 kilowatt-hour, but temporarily you might be able to use approximately 95 kilowatt. That's a kind of ease in disaster situation. You can even have that with the standard range. That possibility is highly likely. I think that's another plus. Also, because of the software lock on the battery, there's a lot of buffer. You won't be too worried about battery degradation. If you have a lot of buffer, even if you charge it to 100% on the display, the actual battery pack is only about 80% charged. So you don't really need to limit the battery. So even if you charge it to 100% all the time, the battery material is really only at about 80% state. So you don't really have to think about it and can charge it all the way to 100%. So you don't have to worry about battery degradation. That's why the Model S standard range is so special. Above all, the only difference is the battery capacity. But it's really just a software limit. Interiors and exteriors are the same. Considering that, it's just a $10,000 difference. Thinking about possible updates later on, ordering a standard range isn't so bad. I guess that's why lots of folks reach this conclusion. However, personally, I don't think this standard range isn't so great. I don't feel it's a great deal for both models, S and X. But first, regarding Model S, you've got to consider that Model 3 exists. Model 3 has a performance grade that sells from $50K in the US. Comparing this with Model S standard range, The Model 3 performance is $25K cheap. That's an absurd difference. It's so much you could buy a whole gas car. Obviously, Model 3's performance is better. Even the range doesn't change. In my opinion, if it's between Model 3 and Model S standard range, just a simple 22 speaker setup with active noise cancelling added, more high-end sound system, plus rear touchscreen and seat ventilation. Of course, Model 3 is smaller inside, but Model S has air suspension for a smoother ride. I think those who know Model S well might see more, but generally that's about it. Probably more to it, but that's all I can think of. If you can see value in these features for an extra $25K, Model S is a good. On the other hand, there's Model 3. You can apply for federal tax credits for getting a discount of roughly $7,500. Considering that this Model S standard range may not be a high-value grade for many people. The same goes for the X model too, right? It's similar to Model Y long range. Let's compare, huh? The acceleration isn't as good as Model Y, but Y has this thing called acceleration boost. With this option, you can unlock with software, and that's kind of cool. Also, acceleration time, 3 seconds. It's faster than the X standard range, and ranks third when compared to Y long. The Y long is better in terms of range, going about 100 kilometers longer on the EPA standards, despite X's interior quality, and cool things like air suspension and falcon wing doors. But the storage space, I reckon Y's is a bit roomier. So comparing Y and back of the envelope calculation is about $38,000. Translate that into yen, and it's a whopping 5.5 million yen cheaper for Y long than X standard. This applies to Y too, right? You can apply for a federal government subsidy, a tax deduction of $7,500. So taking that into account, it's about 6.5 million yen cheaper. The difference is widening, so it depends how much value you see in the X standard. General opinion is, for most people, Y is plenty enough. That's probably what most would feel. The point is definitely the X has less range, only 433 kilometers, even with 20-inch. Usually around 500 kilometer feels like the sweet spot. So from that perspective, the X standard range kind of falls short. Personally, I don't feel good recommending. This time there are new standard range options for models S and X. Explained my opinion. Soon in Japan, deliveries will start soon too. Expect the X to be part of that. When the rounds are finished, probably the standard range will probably be added in Japan. I'm confident in this. Japan's small, so introducing the standard range would probably make sense, so chances are pretty high it will be introduced. But whether the standard range is recommended just because it's available, personally I wouldn't really recommend it. In fact, I'm against it. If Models 3 and Y are around, frankly, they're enough for most, no matter what. If you're considering the X, please don't settle for less. I've driven various EVs, heard many EV owners, and larger SUVs consume power, so you'd need decent range anyway. So it's crucial that you have around 100 kilometer left, especially in winter. Your range could drop further. Applying that logic, an indicator showing 80 kilometers remaining, or 75 kilometers remaining probably feels too low. You might absolutely, especially if winter reduces your range. In that respect, I can't recommend the X's standard range. So if you're considering buying X, the standard range isn't necessary. Stick with the long range. Sure enough, standard range will be introduced in Japan. When the time comes, I plan to test the actual ranges, charging performance, and do 1,000 kilometers challenge. And I want you all to consider the results too. There's a very high chance the standard range will come to Japan. Whether you buy it or stick with 3 or Y, well, that's something you'd need to ponder. I'd like those considering X to think about that. Anyway, that's all for now. So, thank you for watching. If you like this video, give me a like. And please make sure to subscribe to my channel. See you soon.